there, this is our help video for week 6 for Spanish 101. And I was really happy to see with the questions that were posted in the Google Doc that I put up for you guys. The questions were about supplementary materials, things that you can do to be able to listen to Spanish in other contexts besides just class materials. So one person asked about finding videos and podcasts and that kind of thing. And the other person asked about telenovelas. So basically both were about finding content to get exposure to Spanish in other contexts. So first, quickly about books and reading materials. Any of the public libraries in the Valley will have a Spanish children's book section. So that's a good place to start. And just keep in mind, though, that I had this awakening, kind of a rude awakening when I was studying Spanish in high school, that I felt like, my Spanish was getting to a point where I could understand basic conversation and that kind of thing. And so then I started checking out children's storybooks, thinking that would be a simple encounter with the language. And just keep in mind that really children's books, while they're somewhat simpler in the ideas that they're presented, the grammar and vocabulary is not necessarily going to be simple in the same way that materials created for students are going to be. So just keep that in mind. There may be a lot of regionalisms or slang or that kind of thing. Even like baby talk kinds of things that may still be a little bit complex. So if you are reading a children's story and you find that it's really hard to comprehend, don't be discouraged. Just know that sometimes that the cutesy kind of language that we might encounter in children's storybooks will come across as unfamiliar to you in your Spanish learning journey. So also I apologize for the background noise. Shh. My 4-year-old is making noise. But then other ideas for getting access to the Spanish language. One is BBC has a page, and that's what you're seeing right here in the background. It's from the BBC website, and it's a page devoted to language learning, and there's other resources that they have here too. But one is a short telenovela. It's like 22 episodes, I think, and it is specifically designed for language learners. So it's kind of silly, like most telenovelas are, but it is specifically designed for people who are learning Spanish. So there's transcripts and there's little additional materials that go along with it, and it's going to be simple and kind of slowed down speech, which can be nice for you as you're learning the language. So I do recommend that. And then, of course, there are lots of opportunities to find materials in Spanish. One is if you have Netflix or Hulu or something like that, you can find Spanish language. Aria, shh. You can find Spanish language materials there. So like here is just something that I saw on Netflix, and you can see here that the audio is in Spanish, and then you can add subtitles in English or subtitles in Spanish if you'd like, depending on what you're wanting, what your goals are. If you're wanting to watch authentic Spanish language materials for the kind of the cultural understanding and just listening to the language, then it might help to watch it with English subtitles so you know what's going on a little bit more. But if you're wanting to kind of test yourself and see how much you can get of the content, just listening to Spanish, either turn the captions off or put on the Spanish captions. But do be aware, anytime you're watching something that's in Spanish with Spanish subtitles, just like you might encounter if you ever watch something in English with English subtitles, the subtitles won't always match up word for word because often the process of captioning is different and doesn't necessarily capture everything. So just be aware that the captions or subtitles may not always line up 100% with the spoken language. So that is one idea. Another, let me see. There's another website it's similar to Netflix, but it's all Spanish language materials called Pantalla. And I think it's about $6 a month, but you can get a free week to see if you like the material that's there. So if you find that Netflix just doesn't have the variety that you're looking for, you might check out Pantaya and see if you're interested in that. If you are looking for recommendations, one thing that you might consider, there are a lot, even on Netflix, there are a lot of Spanish telenovelas and Spanish language movies, a lot of international films on Netflix. But if you, like I do, have kids running around all the time and you're wanting to make sure that whatever you're playing is kid appropriate, one way that I recommend doing that is just do a Google search for movies for Spanish class. Looking for movies that are recommended for like K-12 teachers to show in Spanish class. And like this site here has a bunch that are recommended, and it tells what the rating is and what any potential content related issues might be. Because with international films, a lot of times there will be content that's a little more mature. So just be aware of that, and use something like a curated list of movies that are specifically for Spanish K-12 classes if you're concerned about that. And then another source, where did it go? The CWI library. If you go to the library and then click on the videos tab and go to the streaming video databases, it has a list of the databases that we have available to us through the CWI library, and one of those, you can probably find Spanish language courses or Spanish language materials in a number of these, but one that I've really been enjoying lately is called Kanopy with a K. And you can get, if you have a Roku TV or something like that, you can get the app on your TV, but it has a ton of documentaries, movies, all different kinds of things. A lot of documentaries, though, especially nonfiction materials. And you can search by language if you do an advanced search. So, or, if you just search for, let's see. So we want to search for Latin America. Then you can narrow your search and just look for Spanish language materials. And many of them, the default will be they will have English subtitles, and you won't be able to turn those off. So just be aware of that. But it's a great way to get access to a lot of Spanish language content that you can listen to or that you can watch. And then for listening, and this is especially good if you're looking for something that you can do on the go, something that you can just listen to and not have to sit down and watch, our podcast, which is one of the things that specifically was asked about. So here I have 3 podcast recommendations. The first is Duolingo actually has a Spanish podcast, and many of you are probably familiar with Duolingo and the great language learning content they put out. But they have a Spanish podcast, and it is specifically designed for language learners, and they have a lot of materials to help supplement, to help you comprehend. So the podcast will have native Spanish speakers speaking, but it will also have some English in there to help understand context. So that's a great resource. And then Spanish Pod 101. You may, if you don't find it by searching for Spanish Pod 101 in whatever podcast player you like, try searching for Learn Spanish. And the image that you'll see is this right here, the lady with the headphones and the microphone, is what you will probably see in your podcast player for this podcast. And that's a good language learning podcast as well. And then another one is called Coffee Break Spanish. Again, also designed for Spanish students, but great content, lots of exposure to authentic native Spanish speakers. So those 3 podcasts, the Duolingo podcast, the Spanish Pod 101, and the Coffee Break Spanish are all good resources. And then for videos, of course, like I said, Kanopy, Netflix, or Pantaya if you want to look there. Also Hulu. I don't currently have a Hulu subscription, so I can't pull up and see what they have available right now, but I do believe that Hulu has some good Spanish content as well. Any telenovela in Spanish is going to have a lot of great dialogue to listen to, and just kind of a fun way to get exposure to the language and the different accents and all of that. So one final thing that I recommend is music. So this wasn't specifically part of the question, but I do recommend finding ways to listen to Spanish music. And the local radio stations a lot of times play a very specific style of Latin music or Spanish language music that you might not appreciate or enjoy. So if you don't, then as we work through the culture lessons, if you come across one of the artists that are covered in the culture lessons that you like, look them up on Spotify or on Pandora. Or if you look up on Pandora, you can find different Latin stations. So this one that I've been enjoying lately is the Latin indie singer-songwriters. So whatever style of music you like, you can probably find a Pandora station that has Latin music of that specific style. So do that, and as you find artists that you like, you can, follow them more closely. You can also look up the Latin Grammys and see who some of the most popular current Latin artists are, and find out whose music you enjoy, and start following them and looking for opportunities to listen to similar artists. So those are my recommendations. I hope that's helpful, and thank you so much for those questions. It was fun to get to talk about this, and I hope you guys are having a great week, and good luck with the test if you haven't taken it already, and I will see you all online. Sorry again for the background noise.